Hello, everybody, and welcome to the entertainment headquarters, and welcome to Kaiju Connections. And as you can see, we're here to talk about a film that is definitely a landmark, in my opinion, of the cream of the crop when it comes to the kaiju movies of the 1950s and the 1960s. We're talking about King Kong versus Godzilla, which, as you know, it's probably, it is the monster clash of the century for a lot of people. And to join me to talk about this classic, we have on the side of me Mr. DG Anubis of the Metal Tavern Radio, Mr. Thrash Pondu Pons, Sci-Fi Century, the Professor Dan Miller, Mr. Tony of the Dead, and of course Jedi Granville. So let's see who's in the house tonight to talk about one of the Showa era's most prominent movies. We have joining us today
Sister
my
Sarah.
truck is everywhere. Yes. Snarks and Sass.
Snarks ass, how you doing?
Olven.
Oh, hey,
Connor was up.
Thank you for joining us today. So, how's everyone doing tonight?
Doing pretty good.
Yeah,
Pretty good.
Can't complain.
So,
good it can be.
yeah.
Can't complain.
Yeah. So, with all this said and done, let's talk about the one and only King Kong versus Godzilla. And like always, we're going to start off with the popular question of, can you remember the first time you got to see this particular film? So we'll start off with Mr. DJ Anubis.
The first time I got to see it was probably in the late 70s. I'd already seen Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, Godzilla versus Gigan, etc. But hey, shush! Sorry, cats. I probably saw it in the late 70s, and at the time I wasn't a super big fan. Hold on, guys. You guys go to someone else, please, real quick.
Fucking cats.
Oh my god.
Mr. Thrash Pondu Pons, I'll let you answer this question.
I've actually never seen the film.
Liar.
I was gonna say you lying.
For a millisecond. No, I actually first saw this. It had to have been 73. I would have been about 6 years old. I was already a huge Godzilla fan. I used to watch Godzilla with my dad when I was a kid. And of course, King Kong. And I was over, my mom was working, and I was over at her friend's house. They were watching me. And they go, "Hey, Robbie, I was Robbie back then. Hey, Robbie, do you want to see this Godzilla movie?" And I go, "Godzilla movie, sure." And they go, "Yeah, this one's King Kong versus Godzilla." And I was like, "You can do that?" And I remember seeing it, and I was absolutely blown away. I didn't even notice as a 6-year-old that the King Kong was substantially enlarged in size to make him comparable with Godzilla. To me, it all just made sense, and I loved it.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Sci-Fi Century.
Man, it had to be around when I was just maybe I don't really remember. I think I had to be either 5 or 6, maybe even 8. I don't know, but I first saw it. I was like, oh wow, it had to be in the late 80s that I saw it. But it was once I saw it, I was like, man, just like Thrash Pondo was like, they can actually do that, like that actually exists. And then I saw it, and when you're young, you're like, oh wow, you're mesmerized by it. And I was already a huge Godzilla fan, and I was like, young and talking shit to Kong. Hey, why the hell Kong being Godzilla, man? Isn't it supposed to be the other way around? and I was like, yeah, man, like, but now, yeah, it's always been a, like in any real true kaiju fan, Godzilla fan, like that's always a movie that everybody has seen, everybody talks about, and then it being back in the day where Kong was very popular because he was American, and then we have with Godzilla, biggest clash ever, at the time, and yeah, it's a great film. But I had to have been maybe 8 or 9 that I.
Mm. Have you killed the cats, Anubis? Are they dead?
No, they for whatever reason, they play together, they sit by the window together, but if I go to feed them, Neko cops an attitude with Hazel, and it's like a big war starts. I'm like,
Yep, food is king when it comes to animals. So we'll go back to you first. Can you remember the first time you seen King Kong versus Godzilla?
I'm gonna remove you, Tony. Oh yeah, no. Late 1970s. I'd already seen a few Godzilla films, and I watched that one. You'll probably hear me say it more than once. This film is not a very high one on my list. I don't like it because it's not. Kong doesn't. I don't believe that Kong can use electricity. Like it's a ridiculous notion for me.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like the fact that, of course, they wanted to be even. I understand like why they did it with Toho and etc., trying to appease Americans and whatnot. But it's a fine movie. I actually like the look of Godzilla in this film. I really do like the look of Godzilla. And it's actually a decent story, but just I don't never liked the idea that Kong could use electricity to try to defeat Godzilla. So whenever Wingard finally did Godzilla versus Kong, he got it right. That got it right. So even if you made made Kong like competitive, at least you had to use like an axe or something to try to be on that same level with Godzilla. So that makes sense.
Yeah,
But
you had to be more. Yeah, you had to be more, and you had to be more thinking and use the surroundings and materials to actually fight the power of this ginormous atomic natural beast. You had to be, engineering with how we fought the creature Godzilla
Yes.
compared to like having a natural ability.
Yep.
So we'll now go down to Mr. Daniel Miller.
The first time I saw this movie, it was actually a birthday present from one of my grandparents. I don't remember if it was the 8th or the 9th, but I remember opening up out of the wrapping and just being completely just mind blown that there's a movie of King Kong fighting Godzilla actually exists in the first place. And immediately I was like, what the hell is this? So I popped it into the DVD player, and immediately I was just surprised by it. I liked how it's played as a direct sequel to Godzilla Raids Again, while also being a very, I want to say, it's a surprising reinterpretation of the original King Kong story, but it does it in a way that intersects into the Godzilla narrative. So as Thrash, hey, hello. So as Thrash Ponzo said, it makes sense in the Showa continuity of the Godzilla movies. I also realized that years later on that it's actually the third movie for both Godzilla and Kong franchises, considering that the sequels to those were released months apart after the first movies of each franchise. So as much as there is a bit of history repeating itself, there's also the fascinating part of the inspiration and the inspiree crossing paths for the first time in as well. So that was just fantastic to see. The monster battles, I absolutely loved watching them. I could just watch them over and over again.
Yeah, so Mr. Tony of the Dead, can you remember your first time watching this?
Oh God! If I had to think back, yesterday.
It was just yesterday.
Last night I started, and today I finished it. So, yeah, I wasn't 3 or anything. I just saw for the first time today.
Cool.
I've seen the cover and everything, like the one that Sci-Fi has, the VHS and that, but I never actually watched it. I didn't know it was real, to be honest. I didn't think that was a real movie.
Yeah.
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 But I finally got to watch it, and compared to what I've been watching recently, because I'm starting backwards in a way. I'm starting with the newer ones, going back to the originals, and it's fun, But I don't know. I have things to say, but yeah, it was an interesting first watch for sure.
Mm-hmm. And finally, Mr. Jedi Granville.
Okay, and just for some very
Toho Blu-ray.
this is the Blu-ray Japanese copy. So yeah.
Oh.
But anyway, to get to answer your question, I remember this very well because it was the first time seeing this film, and this was over because we didn't have cable at the time. This was over my sister's house on a Saturday in 1980, and it was raining. Was it raining? It was raining. It was raining, and all I can tell you is during the
You remember that? You
yes,
remember
I
the
do.
weather?
Look. This shows how special this film is because I told you guys before, I actually made a little comic strip of Kong and Godzilla fighting, with Kong being the 33 size, but I did not know he was going to be enlarged for this film. So when you see him fighting against Godzilla, it's like, wow, he's much bulk up than whatever, But what I come out of that seeing that film was the amount of toy advertising that was showing during that time. They were showing a lot of toy trucks, toy this, and it was like, are they trying to bait the kids that are watching this? Because they were baiting me, but I was more interested in the film than anything. I mean, I love toys at that time, but I was 10 years old and I wanted to see, monsters, really go at one another, and seeing Godzilla and Kong butt heads, it was like enriching, but it was just so funny. It was like electrifying, like Kong was. He was getting electrified, so was I. So
the thing that amazed me about this film, and I'm talking about when I first seen it, I've told everyone, the majority who's here, about how I first discovered Godzilla as a kid, and how I first discovered the original King Kong was like back on the Sunday night matinees at the grandparents' house.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize, I did realize and did discover that there was a Godzilla versus King Kong movie, but I didn't actually get to see it eventually until they released this.
Yeah. The King Kong box set.
So this is the King Kong box set that came out in 2005 in the UK. And this box set came out before the Peter Jackson remake. So in this box set, it has the original King Kong. It has the original King Kong in color. It has Godzilla versus King Kong. And it also has King Kong Escapes. And the box set's a beautiful box set because when you unfold it, it looks like the Empire State Building with all the discs in, and then it also has a booklet telling you about the original 1933 Kong. So this box set means a great deal to me because it was because of this box set I got to see Godzilla and King Kong bash it out on the big screen downstairs in the living room on my big telly with surround sound, and it was a great day. But yes, with that said, let's look at King Kong versus Godzilla. So King Kong versus Godzilla is a 1962 Japanese kaiju film directed by Ishiro Honda with special effects by Eiji Tissue. Can anyone say his name before I butcher this?
Tsuburaya.
Iji Tsuburaya.
Because I'm horrendous at pronunciation.
Oh, of course, the professor knows how to pronounce it.
Well, of course, he's authentic with his words.
Yes, because he's
Of course,
posh.
I'm a
I'm not.
professor. Yes, and I am a posh son of a bitch.
Yes.
That, by the way, that theory that there were two endings, one for Japan, one for America, that lasted actually up until this century. It's finally been discredited, but people were saying it like it was scripture. I mean, there were newspaper articles and stuff about it.
Well, no. Godzilla did win, just nobody wants to admit it.
Well, you see, that's the one thing everybody forgets when you watch into the film is that Godzilla is actually an amphibian. He can breathe underwater. So the fact that you don't see Kong, oh, by the way, spoiler alert, the fact you don't see Godzilla at the end doesn't mean that he's dead. Also, in the Japanese version, there's a scene that was clipped. When it first goes to black, you actually hear both monsters roar,
Right.
Yep.
which alludes to the fact that they're actually both alive.
That's
But
right.
that's clipped for the American reason for some reason not fully known, and that's where the whole idea that in the American Kong wins and in the Japanese Godzilla wins. That's I think where that all
That's
started.
something we were talking about last week on
Yeah.
Tokusatsu Action Land. Was that
But it's impressive that it's lasted that theory into the 20th century until probably when
Well,
the Criterion released the
people
box
try to
set.
say, well, Kong's the one that swims away, and then I try to point to the fact that when you watch, I think it's the Astro Monster, where Rodan, Godzilla, and Ghidorah fall in the water. Only Ghidorah comes out of the water, but we know that both the other two are not dead or defeated. So it's like you can make an argument that just because Kong was the last one to swim away, goes back to what Thrash said about Godzilla swimming underwater. He can breathe it. It's not a big issue for him.
That's true.
Maybe the whole point of them making that statement about there's two endings, maybe it's just to feed, fan service, because I never believed when I first heard that. I heard that back in the late 80s, and I was like, I don't believe that, because I kept looking at the original. When I say the original, the American cut, but when I actually saw the, Japanese cut, I was like, they're both the same. So where are you getting this idea? And I think, like a Thrash was saying, the Japanese cut, you hear both sounds of the monsters' roars, but in the American cut, you just hear Kong's roar. So
I do think they were trying to appease the Americans. with
Yeah,
that.
that's all it was.
Yeah.
And one more piece of the equation. One has to remember the time frame we're talking. In 1962, Godzilla was still very, 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 very much a bad monster. He didn't become the hero and the protector of Earth and the savior of little children. That actually came later when they were trying to reinvent him. So in 1962, you didn't want Godzilla to win. You wanted Kong to win because Kong was least sympathetic. And if you look closely, it's almost like a perfect hero's journey where he fights and loses the first time, but then has to go back and try one more time. It's actually very well plotted out, but that's another angle.
Right.
Yeah. So it's got so it was produced and distributed by Toho Co. Ltd. It is the third film in both the Godzilla and King Kong franchises, as well as the first Toho produced film featuring King Kong. It's also the first time that each character appeared on in a film in color and in widescreen.
Glorious Technicolor.
Yes. Love it.
Yes. And, Godzilla is reawakened by an American submarine, and a pharmaceutical company captures King Kong for promotional uses, culminating in a battle on Mount Fuji. So,
right.
Mhm.
The
So
battle of the century.
Yeah, so the budget for this is 432,000.
Yeah.
In the box office, it made 8.7 million.
Yep.
Ching.
Which that's
Still making money, probably.
Oh yeah, well on any re-release on
up, little Loki?
Blu-ray.
Oh,
Yo.
hey, Loki.
The film was followed by Mothra vs. Godzilla. So The project began with a story outline devised by King Kong stop-motion animator Willis O'Brien around 1960, in which Kong battles a giant Frankenstein monster. O'Brien gave the outline to producer John Beck for development behind O'Brien's back, and without his knowledge, Beck gave the project to Toho to produce the film, replacing the giant Frankenstein monster with Godzilla and scrapping O'Brien's original story. King Kong vs. Godzilla was released theatrically in Japan on August the 11th, 1962, and grossed 352 million, that'll be in yen, of course, making it the second highest grossing Japanese film in history upon its release. The film remains the most attended Godzilla film in Japan to date, and is credited for encouraging Toho to prioritize the continuation of the Godzilla series after 7 years of dormancy. A heavily re-edited Americanized version of the film was released theatrically in the United States by Universal International Inc. on June the 26th, 1963. So, there we go. So, even to this day, it's still the highest or the most attended Godzilla film out there in Japan. This is the Japanese movie poster, so it just shows you the reach that this film has had, throughout the years, and of course it's still made an impact. In my recollection, when you had two separate franchises, I'm assuming Godzilla, Kong, this is the first time that two studios or a collaboration actually happened, where two stars from different franchises came together in one movie, to my knowledge, of the science fiction kind.
Definitely. And that's why O'Brien originally invented it as Frankenstein, because Universal owned the rights to both at that time.
That's correct.
So he thought Universal would gobble it up, but Universal wanted nothing to do with it. They also, and this actually really broke my heart, and I assume Will O'Brien's as well, he envisioned it being all stop motion. And nobody wanted to do another stop motion movie at this time. They thought stop motion was dead. And when he ever found out that the Japanese were doing Man in Suit, he was despondent. I like the Man in Suit. I think it has character, but he was horrified that they replaced everything that he had envisioned, he had storyboarded with stop motion.
He did actually try to take the parties involved to court, but because he didn't have enough evidence, he lost the case, and the film went ahead in production.
Yeah, it's like, I think, but me and Anubis were actually talking the other day. We did our cinematic synergy episode, and we're talking about the Golden Voyage of Sinbad, and we're just saying, when you watch a film today, it's CGI. CGI, like even the Godzilla movies, big bad CGI, you can see it coming, where there's something organic or something more realistic about the stop motion style of filmmaking. And I think depending on the type of movie you're trying to make or the kind of audience you're trying to attract, I think there's room for all kinds of filmmaking. Even if you look back when they did the original, when Peter Jackson did the Lord of the Rings movie, he captured every kind of filmmaking in that trilogy. He had miniatures, he had puppets, he had CGI, he had suitmation, he had a mixture of every kind of filmmaking to make that trilogy, and it ended up being one of the most loved film trilogies out there.
Right. And I was gonna say, don't they have a little bit of stop motion in this, or is it just?
Yes,
they have, it was.
In fact, there was two sequences where there was.
It's the bit with the octopus, where the octopus tentacle picks up the native on the island, and he's swinging him around, and then throws him. And I can't remember. I think the next one's the Godzilla kick.
Yeah,
when he rolls back on his tail.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the second part.
Yeah, there
Yeah,
he
that's it. That's it.
Godzilla said, "Get fucked."
He's like, get out of my house, bitch.
So even to this
That was
day,
before he
I still-
swam away as a little bitch, right?
yes.
Who? What?
So-
The way
With
Kong fell
what?
back, it's hilarious. The way Kong fell back was just hilarious, man. Like it was like a freaking like a comedy movie back in the days. He just literally goes back and things go all the way up.
Well, just remember this. This is something that I think some people overlook in terms of Godzilla films. King Kong versus Godzilla is purposely supposed to be a comedy.
Yes.
That's
right.
the thing I think some people overlook. And I had to look this up because someone said it's deliberately supposed to be funny, which is why when you see a lot of comedic moments with the kaiju, there's a reason why he falls back kind of funny, like, you know. But no, it's basically supposed to be a comedy. It's not supposed to be taken too seriously. I mean, you have some serious moments, but it's meant to be a comedy. So that's why you get those moments.
Yeah.
At one point, when Godzilla,
serious movie, okay,
when
These are
Godzilla
real
first,
monsters.
when King Kong first like backs off when he sees Godzilla, and he's like, "I'm out." Godzilla, the sound Godzilla makes actually sounds remarkably like a snicker. He's like, yeah, like yeah. Thanks for playing. We have some lovely parting gifts. Oh, and by the way, the guy that got to play Taco, speaking of comedy, he's known as Japan's Charlie Chaplin. He was a famous Japanese character actor. In fact, he paired up with the guy from Mothra, whose name eludes me, Fushida, I think his name was.
Yeah.
The heavyset guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, the guy who mops the floor with the gangsters. They did like comedy routines. And so to have him was considered a huge coup in this movie. Also, the guy who plays the translator, Kano, I think his name was in the movie. He also was a very animated vaudevillian style Japanese comic. So there was definite comic overtones in this movie.
Yes.
I didn't like that.
I didn't like that part.
No.
I like when Godzilla puts his tail on top of Kong's face, says, "Eat my ass."
It's like bam.
I don't remember that part. That must have been the U.S. version.
No,
Yeah, probably.
It's a Japanese cut.
Sounds like it.
So,
Well, no, that wouldn't be the U.S. version because they would have cut that out because they want Monkey to win.
Exactly.
Yep.
so in terms of the plot, the overall plot basically, there's this pharmaceutical company that's frustrated with the television shows. You know, it's not kind of hitting the mark. They're not getting ratings. They're not getting viewership, and they want to kind of find a way to get viewers. So they ended up going on this expedition to this island. And then, long story short, then there's something happened, and then they discover this legend of Kong, or this god that's on the island.
Because we have to remember that the programs that they're producing are dull and boring and have no imagination. So
Pacific Pharmaceuticals demands publicity.
Yes.
You two are going to Pharaoh. Find me a genuine monster if he exists or not.
Yes, there you go.
Wow.
And how prophetic. Big Pharma controls the media.
Yeah.
Right?
There's no way they would be going to that island to get healthy things for people. That's so unrealistic.
And do you know what the drug that they're producing is called? Soma.
Yeah.
For Brave New World. They call it Soma. I'm like, that's got to be an in joke.
That the natives knew what smokes were. I thought that was the funniest thing. Like,
oh my
Yeah,
god!
We got to calm down. Let's break out the cigarettes. Here we go. Have a smoke, buddy.
Can I just say that that's one thing I have a problem with this film? I mean, it's like, and someone would say it's like, oh, you have a problem with the natives being in blackface? No, I don't have no problem with that. I feel like they're closer to that kind of tone of pigment anyway. The fact that outsiders come to an environment and give them death sticks. It's like when we say, you want to buy some death sticks? You don't want to buy me no death sticks. I don't want to buy you death sticks. No, that's the point. Why are you selling death to these people when they face this all the time on the island, you know? So it's just like, that's the problem I have, like you bringing something that's toxic to their environment. I mean, I just have a problem with that.
Think of this though, back then, even doctors were recommending cigarette brands. So in their defense, they probably didn't even know they were doing anything bad to them.
But they instantly start smoking. I mean, I know it's the actors doing this and everything, but
that's the
if
thing
they're
to do.
instantly smoking, like, oh wow, what is this? I'm doing damage to my lungs right now, you know. So it's like that kind of thing.
Hey, but those so-called primitive.
The kid was smoking up too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Hey,
you gotta hit some of this green shit down here that Kevin has.
Oh my god.
Your mommy. You better not smoke around home.
And yeah, you know how I know it's a movie, but you know how funny it is that they're natives and never seen cigarettes before, and they learn that shit quick and start smoking like they're freaking regular people. I'm like, oh,
yeah,
dude. It was like, yeah, like I'm like,
they were pros,
man. Like,
well, that just shows you how addictive it is. But that just shows you how addictive it must have been.
I mean, unless it was the righteous herb, I would think they would be more indulged into it. You know, I mean, it's like puff, puff, pass. You know, I would think they would be doing on that. You know, but
maybe that is what Kong was doing with Godzilla when he's trying to stick the tree down his throat. He was trying to, give him a
light
cigarette.
up, buddy.
Yep. Light it up, baby. This is pure weed.
Hey! And when like Godzilla breathes on him and his fur gets on, it's just he dropped the cigarette and it was fur in his fur.
I always like that whenever Kong gets burned by Godzilla's breath, he's always himself like, what?
What is that?
What is this?
Yeah.
It's like when he got shot in the original, he's like, whoa, this hurts.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he never been burned before.
No.
Mm-hmm.
But he could touch electricity.
Yes.
Electricity is a natural element. You gotta remember that.
Yeah, but wouldn't he catch on fire after a while anyway?
Yeah, you would think he would.
Yeah, wouldn't all of his hair get zapped? Wouldn't all of his hair get like all zapped?
Static.
Yeah.
Artistic licensing. This is what you have to look at. That's the thing.
And why is it Kong's able to shock him when Godzilla goes through the high tension wires earlier and it doesn't affect him?
Second generation. This Godzilla was never exposed to electricity. He learns from that in Mothra versus Godzilla when he takes down the towers and electrical nets.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
So overall, like, I don't want to go to the plot too much because just to talk about Godzilla and Kong kicking the shit out of each other, basically. But basically, what happens is Godzilla. Sorry, they go to the island to actually discover a real monster, which is Kong. They discover the giant octopus, and then they obviously discover that the drug, which basically hypnotizes Kong. At the same time, there's a nuclear submarine that goes past the icebergs and releases Godzilla, and Godzilla then goes on the rampage, and basically they need to wait to defeat Godzilla. So their idea is to pit Kong against Godzilla to stop him from destroying Japan. But then the owner of the pharmaceutical company doesn't want to do it because he's like, well, he's just thinking of profit. He's thinking of the media. He's thinking he wants to crazily control the situation.
Yeah,
and it's just
how homeboy says it's like, you dumbbell.
Is this one of your followers, Crash? Is this one of your followers? Because I like this guy.
Indy Spouts, Indy Spouts is like my guru. He's my living fact checker.
Can he please come hang out in my chat during my live stream? Because I will laugh all day with this guy.
He's absolutely amazing. Oh, and we have a working theory, by the way, that he's actually the ghost in the machine. That he's actually artificial intelligence who was learned to act like I am not a robot. Because his level of information, he actually outweighs me. And I would do my own horn.
Nice.
But he actually it's just like bam, and he has facts like basically just on the tip of his tongue. It's not even like so somebody like, oh, he's researching it. No one could type that fast. He knew it before I finished saying it, whatever it was that I was saying.
He's like a fountain of knowledge.
Wow.
He is. He's absolutely amazing. So,
Are you sure he's not a living computer?
well, that's just it. I call him AM just for laughs. One thing I loved about this, by the way, I don't know if you guys noticed it because I never really thought of it before because I know how the plot pans out. But initially, the military doesn't want to pit them against each other. They want to destroy each of them separately for fear that if they both show up in Tokyo, they'll double trash it. And they don't actually come up with that plan until the audience has long after already come up with it. It's like you're screaming at the screen, "I'm gonna fight each other! I'm gonna fight each other!" And the guy's like, "You know what I think we should do? We should have them fight each other." Yeah. So it's like they really milk it so that by the time we get that final confrontation, we are salivating for it.
Yes.
Mhm.
If we're lucky.
It's like the ultimate build up and the ultimate, pantering where they want to build up the attention, build up the action, and then when it finally happens, and that they're kicking the crap out of each other, and it just amazing, scenes all around.
It's basic kaiju force.
Yeah.
If you think about it. Yeah, there you go.
And that's
What was
not
up with the way he would do his monkey call, like a gorilla call? You go, but like the way his arms and his chest would go is like, I never saw an ape do that. Come on.
Well,
the funny thing about that is the actor who's playing Kong, he was told by Tsuburaya himself to go and study, gorillas in the zoo, but as it turns out, he didn't do that. He just said, "I'm going to play it my own way and go from there."
Yeah. And it shows.
Yes, it really
looks like when somebody's trying to sleep and they paint eyes on their eyelids.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm not sleeping. I'm up.
I was like, who are you?
Yeah. Fun fact: everyone says that Kong in this movie looks like roadkill, which for some people that's true, but the reason behind it is a legal one because when Toho got the rights to use King Kong, they were given the stipulation he cannot look like either King Kong, Kong Jr., or Mighty Joe Young. So instead, the department took inspiration from primates that they had in Japan, both naturally and also in zoos.
I did not know that.
Okay.
Wow. Makes sense.
I like it.
They may have gone through the same thing in Conga because Conga doesn't look anything like a real gorilla either. And the funny thing
ugly
is,
gorillas,
in Conga,
go away.
In Conga, he doesn't even start out as an ape; he's a chimpanzee.
Yes.
Just when he gets bigger, he morphs into a gorilla.
There's an enormous gorilla growing larger and larger, heading toward London.
I'm guessing this is all to appease the American critics, I guess, of that time, right?
Probably.
So we can talk about it.
Yeah. Well,
The American critics hated this movie too, but they lambasted it.
Oh my
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
Yeah,
They probably just didn't watch it with friends or have a discussion.
Right.
So, I guess the next question I'm going to ask is what is your favorite out of the two fights that you see with Godzilla and Kong in this? What would you say is your favorite sequence between the two? You like both of them?
I gotta go with. I'll just say this. I gotta go. My favorite one. I'm gonna say it real quick. Sweep the leg.
Nah.
Sweep the leg.
I like it when Kong takes the tree and just kind of jams it down his throat. I mean, there's a certain anger there. He's like, choke on this.
Yeah.
And of course he's doing it so he doesn't get burned. But there's just something very violent there that always it's like at that point Kong's really, really fighting. He's not messing around throwing boulders or whatever. He's like really like
He's like, I'm not taking any more of your crap.
Yeah. I also liked the crescendo of the battle where they're both destroying the Atami spar on the cliff of Mount Fuji before they both tumble in, and it's just this very rapid cutting to and from Godzilla and Kong on each side, and the buildings just being destroyed in the middle, and you're just waiting to see which one would actually win once the building's gone.
Yes.
Mhm. Like, I like all of the. I was just amazed that two characters that I kind of grew up watching were in the same film together. Because the thing that amazed me as a kid as well, basically, if you've seen the original 1933 Kong in 1954 Godzilla, what's the first thing you see? How can they fight each other? The different sizes. And the kind of, I know that Godzilla in this basically, it's like a continuation of Godzilla Raids Again, where he got trapped in the ice at the end of that film. But Kong I cannot remember if they explained why Kong was the size he was.
Well, bear in mind, King Kong actually died in New York 30 years earlier. They call him Kong because he's a big ape, and that's the American word for a big ape. This is a different giant gorilla who just happens to be much bigger.
Yeah.
And then I guess we have to remind ourselves too, maybe because he's, drinking the so-called Powerade, that's what's juicing him up to be the size that he is now. You could theorize that could be the case, but
he's drinking his prime.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes sense. Oh, and the scene where Godzilla breaks out of that iceberg, that's just an amazing shot. They do it with that overhead camera, and you really think you're watching something break out of an iceberg. Yeah. It's just like so cool. There was a massive. It was basically just a massive stunt pool that was built back of the Toho lot, and my understanding was it was actually built for making naval battle sequences
for Pearl Harbor
from Hawaii to Malay.
Oh, excellent! Thank you. Yes. I knew it was something along those lines, but Toho got a lot of mileage out of that with like giant monsters in water.
Oh yeah,
but it's just such an amazing shot. I remember when I saw it as a kid going, and sometimes you see something as a kid and you think it's amazing. You watch it later when you're an adult and it's hokey. No, that scene still stood up on its own. I'm like, wow.
I mean, the fact when you can just watch it, and I still get giddy when I hear when the.
Hey, Andy, we got one in the chat. You see, or you got one on the screen there. You see Tony? He's a big ape.
Yep. No, when Homeboy says, what do you make of that, Al? And then he just says, Godzilla,
Like I think for that pool you're talking about, Thrash. Oh, sorry.
Yes.
I was gonna say what jump on what Thrash had said. Like the big pool, that's what they call it at Toho Studios. Like that, they used that freaking pool. Like, damn, dude, they used the dog crap out of that freaking pool, man. And they even said that pool, like you couldn't stay in it too long because they're built so much bacteria of years of use that they would have to wear special like boots, and they would have to wear like those, what do you call it? Those like overalls that are just pure like hard plastic or something like that. Because that thing was like, it was literally breeding. Who knows what was in there, bro, for that pool for as long as they used it. They used it all the way.
Yeah, it was live fish in that damn thing. They tried to get it out, but even that was impossible to do, So yeah.
Why not drain it and refill it, huh?
Right.
What do I know?
I guess
maybe it was too costly to do.
Probably, yeah, probably.
The
money mineral. Are you kidding? How much water costs?
Right.
I want to go back to something you mentioned, and that that is the fact that you did say that the original concept was going to go back to Universal with Kong versus Godzilla. Sorry, Kong versus Frankenstein. This here is a concept art of what the Frankenstein monster and Kong would have looked like.
Yes.
Wow.
So, the Frankenstein monster to me looks like just another ape.
Yeah. It doesn't look like a Frankenstein type monster in a sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But he's basically your artificial life form type situation. He was genetically created by a mad scientist, which, by the way, and I've been dying to point this out, Toho, when they bought the rights to it, managed to loophole the rights to the Frankenstein element and made another film, Frankenstein versus Baragon,
Right.
Yes.
which is
Yeah.
one of the few Toho movies which actually doesn't simply mention World War II. It also mentions the alliance with Germany. There's that really amazing sequence in the beginning where the Gestapo or the SS, some German entity, they take Frankenstein's work, put it on a U-boat, and smuggle it to the Japanese, and they get it right before the bomb drops. But that's how Frankenstein's artificial heart gets in Japan, which is how the whole thing gets going. And they even double down because War of the Gargantuas is a sequel to Frankenstein versus Baragon. So they really got their investment back when they bought the rights to King Kong versus Prometheus.
Yeah, so we not long ago did the Frankenstein versus Baragon or Frankenstein Conquers the World. We actually reviewed that not long ago, and we also did the War of the Gargantuans. I, for a very long time, did not realize that them two films are connected.
Yeah.
Because I had seen the War of the Gargantuans first. And so I didn't have no idea that them two were connected.
Well, if you had known either Thrash or myself, you would, or even the professor, you would definitely know this information pretty well. I mean, it goes back.
Kevin.
Damn.
Fuck you too.
Okay.
Come to America.
Here's one more connection that I found out when I was doing my research here. I only recently found this out. One of the Toho producers loved the giant octopus footage so much in King Kong versus Godzilla that he wanted to incorporate that into Frankenstein versus Baragon. Supposedly, after Frankenstein wins the fight, he collapses out of exhaustion by a lake, and a giant octopus comes out of the lake and eats him. And they go, yeah, no, we're not doing that. But they did use a giant octopus later on in War of the Gargantuas.
Yes.
So there is a giant octopus connection thread throughout in one way or another.
If you see the alternate ending of Frankenstein Conquers the World, you'd see the Frankenstein monster fight the octopus. If you listen carefully, they actually reused the Ifukube soundtrack for the octopus attack from King Kong versus Godzilla in the Japanese version, which in the American cut, it's replaced by stock music from their horror and adventure films like Against All Flags, The Golden Horde, and Battle at Apache Pass, and among others.
Interesting. So I'm just going to read a little bit about the production of the movie. So King Kong vs. Godzilla had its roots in an earlier concept for a new King Kong feature developed by William O'Brien, animator of the original stop-motion Kong around 1960. O'Brien came up with a proposed treatment, King Kong meets Frankenstein, where Kong would fight against a giant Frankenstein's monster in San Francisco. O'Brien took the project, which consisted of some concept art and a screenplay treatment to RKO to secure permission to use the King Kong character. During that time, the story was renamed King Kong versus the Ginkgo. When it was believed that Universal had the rights to the Frankenstein name, O'Brien was introduced to producer John Beck, who promised to find a studio to make the film. At that point, RKO was no longer a production company. Beck took the story treatment and hired George Worthington Yates to write the screenplay for the film. The story was slightly altered and the title changed to King Kong vs. Prometheus.
Oh no, not David.
Not that Prometheus.
I was gonna say, it was like,
Don't worry, there's no Michael Fassbender here. It's okay.
Chris, I would love to see King Kong and Godzilla just crush him. So
King Kong versus the Alien Queen might have been a decent movie.
Yeah, they'll just bleed on his feet, and then his legs will fall off, and then they'll just run inside of him and eat him. It would be very bad for anything.
Or make a Xenomorph Kong hybrid.
Eh,
But if you're going to look for connections with that franchise, you're going to see it more in Green Slime.
Yeah.
Green. So, the November the 2nd, 1960 issue of Variety reported that Beck had even asked a filmmaker named Jeffrey Duran, a possible misspelling of filmmaker Nathan Duran's, or Jerry Duran, to direct the film. However, the cost of stop-motion animation discouraged potential studios from putting the film into production. After shopping the script around overseas, Beck eventually attached the interest of the Japanese studio Toho, which had long wanted to make a King Kong film.
Yep.
So after purchasing the script, they decided to replace the giant Frankenstein monster with Godzilla to be King Kong's opponent, and would have Shinichi Sekizawa rewrite Yates' script. The studio, though, thought it would be the perfect way to celebrate its 30th year in production.
Yes, because in the Japanese cut, they do start out before they show the main title of the studio. It says 30th anniversary for the studio. So it's like, yeah, I figured like that's clashed it. That's cashed that in.
Kong, and that Frankenstein, man, I like the movie, but that Frankenstein was that was rough, man. That Frankenstein looked pretty rough, man. Walter and Kevin know that I wanted Baragon to win. Actually, I was going for Baragon. I wasn't going for Frankenstein.
I was going to say yes.
I wasn't a big fan of that. I mean, they I like that they get the blockhead and everything, put some of the bolts and stuff. But I kept saying throughout we were talking, he's like, man, he's rough, bro. That's a rough looking Frankenstein, man.
Oh, well, you see, yes. Mie Hama was in King Kong versus Godzilla. That is her.
Mm-hmm. And you know what I found as well with Baragon, because I'd only ever seen him obviously in GMK, and I had seen him in a snippet when he was in Destroy All Monsters. Right. But when you seen Baragon show up in Frankenstein, he was absolutely vicious.
Yes, he was.
Like when he goes through the farm and he kills the farm animals and he just wreaks havoc over the land. I was like, whoa, this is not the Baragon I'm used to.
Well, except for that little close up, you see him when he attacks Miss, in that one shot, and he looks like a little puppy dog. It's like you want to pet him, but no, that's the thing. He's like meet him. Hama Mie, you're the Dutch Pando meant you meant Hama Mie. That's what her name is in Japanese. It's Hama Mie.
I apologize, I butchered it. Thank you. Sorry.
No. It was just like when I interviewed Linda Miller, she says Hama Mie, and I was like, okay, so that's what makes sense. But right? She was a Bond girl.
Yes,
she was. You lived twice.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. She was.
And believe it or not, that was the first time I actually was introduced to her in that actress in the movie. Because when she approaches Bond, for that fake wedding and everything, I have to say when she lifts her head up and I see her, I was like 8 or 9 years old. I thought to myself, that's not a woman, that's an angel. She was so beautiful to me. But of course, I was a kid, so I didn't know any better. But yes, and this was before King Kong versus Godzilla.
Yes. So, does anybody have any trivia or any more behind-the-scenes secrets that they would like to talk about?
Lots.
Well, take the floor, Mr. Daniel Miller.
Yeah.
Now, this wasn't the first movie filmed in widescreen. That credit goes to Varan, the Unbelievable from 1958, which is their first Toho scope movie. But this movie was also filmed in Toho scope in color.
Mm-hmm.
And also let's see some more behind the scenes.
Sorry, Daniel.
Yeah, it's all right. But behind the scenes, The scenes on Faroe Island were meant to be shot abroad in an area near the Philippines, but because of how much money that was used for the budget to acquire the rights to King Kong, they had to scrap going abroad and said most of the coastal footage you see is from the coast of Hokkaido. The rest of the island was filmed on a studio stage. And the final fight, in the final fight, there's a battle toward the mountain. The scene where Hirose, who's in the King Kong suit, flips over Godzilla. That's not an empty Godzilla suit. Right. Nakajima was inside the suit, and that wasn't even scripted. That was just coincidentally caught on camera. So they just caught I like to call it a lightning.
A happy accident.
Yeah, a happy accident.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You mean the one where he really got flipped? I mean, where in the movie where he
Nakajima was in that Godzilla.
He went in the suit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When he went straight over?
He stayed over. Yes,
No
that was him.
shit.
He was in there. Yes.
Yes, he was in there.
I thought it was empty.
No.
I thought it was empty.
No, Nakajima was in the suit. He flipped Nakajima over.
He must have got his wind knocked out or some shit, because that's I would that hurt.
Yeah.
Remember, they are stunting, so they had to
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but being like freaking shoulder thrown.
Yeah, look at that. He ain't got shit on me.
Yeah,
my breasts are low. I'm gonna slap him.
Yeah.
my nipples are.
I'm awake. I'm awake.
I'm awake.
Oh man.
Yeah, one of my favorite scenes.
Yep.
Now I have some.
I'll burn the hell out of you.
I do have some behind. Walter was so kind to send me some behind the scene photography. Ooh. So he has some behind the scenes images.
Oh my god, that's so weird.
I think.
Has his hand.
Yeah.
Wow.
Look at how big that guy is.
Yeah. And keep in mind, the actor's head sits inside the neck of the costume.
Oh yeah. Every time I see that, like, sort of like that Godzilla outfit, I know it's not the same looking head or anything, but I always think of that One Crazy Summer.
Yeah.
Honestly, that might have been my first introduction to Godzilla from One Crazy Summer.
Oh my god.
That's one of my favorite.
When Bobcat, right?
Yeah.
That was also filmed on Cape Cod, folks. Filmed on Cape Cod.
Oh, really? Okay.
What was
One Crazy Summer?
Oh, nice.
Cool.
Yeah, I've got
in fact, the beach the boat race all leaves from was the beach I went to all the time when I was a kid, called Smuggler's Beach in Yarmouth. So named because during Prohibition they smuggled booze into Cape Cod from it, and then we would sell it to the Bostonians for big bucks.
Okay,
nice.
And just to add on to what Queen was saying, is like that, and when Nakajima fell in the Rodin suit from 10 or 15 feet into the water, so
head first.
So that's not his worst.
Yeah. He's also had explosives beneath his lower torso in Varan in the final act of that movie, which he actually got injured, but he made sure no one knew about it because he wanted to create the impression that he was invincible and therefore indispensable to the Toho staff for the kaiju movies. So most of those stunts that happened, he did himself, whether he be buried alive as Baragon underneath the set or have fire explode in his face in Mothra versus Godzilla. That was him.
He was a perfectionist. That's all.
That's your guy, right? Baragon?
Mm-hmm.
I'm learning. I just know Dan has like a favorite, and everybody picks on him for some reason.
Yeah.
It's always I don't pick on him for it. I just think it's funny because every time he gets a chance, that name comes up.
Anubis.
Most bullies don't think they're picking on anybody like Godzilla.
DJ Nubis. DJ Nubis.
And personally, I don't want to correct the professor with anything.
Look,
No way.
you know, the presser has his flying lizard,
Yeah.
and Sentry has his chicken. So I mean, we're all good.
It's chicken.
Okay. It's a chicken. It's a chicken that still made it to Hollywood before Anguirus. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
did.
what did Varan get? Like a cameo for like 2 seconds? Like, just past the screen.
It's like 2, 3. Yeah, about that.
Yeah,
About
yeah.
that.
He may have got a cameo,
Oh.
but at least he got an anime rendition. So that's something, if not nothing at all.
Now he
That
looks
is
like
something.
kind of like a walrus or something.
Now he looks like he needs to go to the gym and lose this few fucking pound.
Right?
Yes, he did indeed. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Aw.
No, if he's
Yeah, I got you.
tribute.
I got you. I got you, Dan. I got you, Professor. If Anubis starts picking on you again, I got you.
Cheers. Now, the octopus. Now, there was actually 2 octopus used in the film. One of them, Subaraya and co. actually ate after shooting it.
Is that
I mean-
true? I heard that. Is that true?
Yes.
He really did?
That's
Yeah,
very
I mean-
true.
Wow.
Yeah, Willis O'Brien and Ray Harryhausen, they would recycle their effects. Subaraya, he eats his effects. That's legendary.
Mhm.
He should have
Yeah.
made sure that he didn't need another shot before he did that.
It's like he's stealing the soul of his own effects.
Mm.
Gonna swallow
Well,
your
that's,
soul.
well, I guess that's one way to, to clear
the
the
money's
set.
worth.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
Is to eat the
If nobody's
production.
gonna take this home, I'm gonna eat it myself.
Yes. So I guess
Oh,
the
wow.
only other thing I can ask now, because obviously we know the story, it's the class of the century. What impact do you think this film has had?
Much.
A huge
We
impact.
got a rematch of these two, American style.
Mhm.
So that's
Yeah.
definitely
True.
something that's an impact with. And remember too, even though we had Anguirus and Godzilla be one of the first titans to be fighting, really King Kong and Godzilla were really the matchup of the century, and we've been seeing nothing more than kaijus fight in and out with one another.
Yeah.
Baragon and the others. It's been there. So
Well, I look at it like this. For me, I think it was like one of the first ever cross promotions for 2 different properties.
Yes.
So obviously over the
Well, it
years
goes
you've got
on that though too, because
yeah.
even though 2021's got it right in terms of like really who's the more dominant predator, I was talking about this with Alvin. That original 62 was a major event between, as you just said, 2 properties that were coming together.
Mm.
We won't see anything like that ever again unless somehow, some way, Godzilla matches up against Gamera. That will be the next major event that we would see. Kaiju.
Yeah.
30
versus Gamera
years they've been
versus
talking
Kong.
about that. 30
With-
years.
Well, within the world of
Imagine.
kaiju and kaiju cinema, that would be the next top.
I was talking about with Toho, if they, let's say the second movie that they're doing with -1 is something to do with either Biollante or Anguirus. If they go a trilogy, man, that would cap it off. A Gamera versus Godzilla would cap it off, and it'd be a massive event. It would just be incredible.
people.
Well, this
Yeah.
is like a stupid
Imagine.
question.
Yeah.
A few years ago, wasn't Toho in talks for buying out Dai Studios?
They
What
tried.
happened with that?
Yeah.
I didn't hear nothing.
They
about
weren't.
They didn't give it up.
They were.
That's the thing. They love that property. They love that property.
They were in talks, but then I think it was Karukawa. Karukawa ended up getting the rights, or ended up buying Dai.
Yeah,
nice.
because Kawakawa produced Gamera the Brave after the trilogy ended in the
Yeah.
90s.
Karukawa. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Then they hate each other in Japan. Really, man. In Japan, they actually literally, what I hear is that they like Toho and Dai at the time, and now Kadokawa owns it. they've always had a hatred because they know that Gamera, not so much that didn't make it as successful as Godzilla, is still Godzilla's top rival as far as kaiju and like characters and stuff like that. That imagine
The funny thing is,
the magnitude of this, dude. Imagine the magnitude if they actually made in Japan Godzilla versus Gamera like that. That's gonna be hard because both of those people in Japan, you know how Japan takes everything pride. They're very prideful about stuff. They won't. They're gonna have to be like, okay, what's gonna be? Is it gonna be a tie? No. Well, Toho, we're superior to Kadokawa. We were superior to Daiei. Put them out of business. Now we're more superior than Kadokawa. That's how much of like they're competitive.
Now it would work because with Godzilla and -1 being the villain, you could easily make Gamera the hero. So it's like it would work. I mean, just they have to find a way to coexist, and both studios have to say, okay, your guy is the bad dude, so we're going to kind of make our guy the good guy, but we always know you're going to have Godzilla surviving in the end. So that's the best of both worlds. I just don't know if they can come together to do that.
I do think they must have some sort of agreement, or there has been a little bit of a wall broke between the two, because as you know, me and Anubis, we have played a game it's a mobile game called Godzilla Battle Lines. And it's all the Godzilla property, all the Godzilla characters, and it's a bit like Pokemon on the game, but like featuring kaiju from the Toho franchises. But then they had a first crossover with Ultraman. So they started adding Ultraman characters. Then they started adding that other franchise that's like Ultraman, not Gundam, something else. Evangelion.
Evangelion. Yeah.
They started adding characters of that. And then when Gamera the Brave came out, everyone in Japan was shocked because they announced a collaboration. And they had the Gamera the Brave characters. And then they've recently just added the Showa Gamera and the Showa Gaios to the game. So for me, that's the fact that Toho allowed, because it's actually run by Toho Games. Yeah. So the fact that Toho has contacted a rival and got their characters in a game, that for me is something that shows you if they're willing to allow the walls to drop for a game, would it open the door for them to eventually want to work on a production of a film?
It's possible.
Well, I think it. Well, I was going to say, I think it all just comes down to we just got to come to an agreement. It's like stop being these little, elementary kid type thinking and just say, okay, put your pride away and just say, what does the audience want? I'm pretty sure the audience will chew this up and just like consume it. I mean, stop worrying about who's the bigger, who's the badder, just bringing them together in one setting and see what happens. Yeah, right. I was never expecting that to happen, but when it did happen, I mean, I actually chewed it up, So it's
probably one of the biggest movies of this century, man. Like it'd just be insane.
I mean, why not? Just do it. I mean, it's not.
And Kevin has a point. Kevin has a point because, and remember, Kevin, SH Monster Arts and Tamashii Nations, how they get either the licenses, either Kadokawa buys, like what do you call it, pays for them to be able to produce Gamera, or Toho gets the rights to Gamera and to use and to make the figures for SH Monster Arts. So. That's another step forward. It's a step forward. It's better than nothing, but it's a little bit of hope.
But going back to what I was trying to initially say is, obviously for me, Godzilla versus King Kong 1962 was the first ever major cross promotion between two well-known characters, and I think through it, other studios have seen the success in it, and obviously even though it's completely different. You have Marvel and DC. I know they've done crossovers of characters from each comic company. It's probably just a matter of time when, just like with Toho, with Gamera and Godzilla, it will be probably a matter of time where we will get probably a mashup film, hopefully with DC characters going against Marvel characters, whether it's a separate entity or part of the MCU or the DCU. I can actually see that happening one day.
Yeah.
So, and obviously, thanks to the success of the MonsterVerse, the characters of Godzilla and Kong are truly shining like they've never had before.
Yeah.
So I'll ask each one of you, what is your opinion of like the versions from the past and the current versions? So Anubis, like you've seen what happened back in the 1962, and you've seen what they've been able to recreate in the MonsterVerse. What's your like opinions on all of that?
Well, the MonsterVerse is really, really good. Without taking, the importance away from 62, because that was, like I said, a really big moment in King Kong and Godzilla's history as monsters. But I do think that in the MonsterVerse version, the story was good, and not only were you able to pit the two monsters against each other, but you can also bring them together to fight a third creature, Mechagodzilla. So you were able to keep both Godzilla and Kong as alpha defenders of the planet, and so they can still battle each other, but then it gets to a point where they have to team up to help. And so the story is great. It's logical in terms of the power that Godzilla possesses versus Kong. Kong's a beast in his own right. As you pointed out earlier, he's able to use his methods of picking up items like the axe and stuff like that to try to defend himself and fight against something like Godzilla, which is very difficult. So it's logical in how they approach the creatures and how the different abilities they have. Kong doesn't really do anything special other than his pure strength. So I like a lot of that the MonsterVerse brought, and I think that they got it right. And so even with GXK, it's kind of just like an added thing to the Kong versus Godzilla. But overall, I think they've done a good job with how they integrated the two monsters again now. So it's just much stronger. But, it's kind of expected as time goes on, technology gets better, directors get better. And so we improve upon that. So, yeah.
One thing I noticed about the 1962 version and the current versions is that in Godzilla versus Kong, is that the pattern of the characters are the same. So in the original 1962 one, Kong was this, sympathetic, giant ape. Godzilla was like a force of nature and had all this power. And they kind of captured that in the modern version, the 2021 version of Godzilla versus Kong. Thrash, have you seen the modern version of Godzilla versus Kong?
I have not. I've seen King Kong and I've seen the original Godzilla. I must confess, I am a purist. Whenever I do podcasts where we talk about old school movies and new ones, I'm like, well, I'm going to vote for the old school one. Our friend, Mr. That fat samurai guy will attest to that. Everyone else was always, oh, this new horror movie's great. And I'm like, no, I'm going to go with Black Sabbath. So, I mean, now I'm not saying the MonsterVerse is not without its charm. It's good. But for me, I would much rather dig out my copy of Matango or Mothra or Destroy All Monsters. That's just my culture. So I'm going to actually stick with my original. One thing I just have to read into the record here, and whether you love the old or the new, one thing that will always blow my mind, if Toho had gone ahead and made Shadow of Glory, we wouldn't be having this conversation. The entire Kaiju franchise was launched because Toho couldn't go to Indonesia to film this anti-war film that they were working on because the Indonesian government was gouging them. Had they been able to make this movie, there would have been no need to make a Godzilla. And without Godzilla, yes, you'd still have King Kong, but who would he fight?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Thrash, I should say, I love you even more, my brother. Just when you mention Matango, yes, thank you.
That is great. Oh, and
Yeah,
one thing about Matango, and hopefully we talk about that someday too, because that's actually it's an amazing film on so many levels. But what they always loved about, Godzilla wasn't always a giant dinosaur hybrid. The initial depiction of him, he was going to be like this sort of mushroom monster that was sort of Japan's tongue-in-cheek version of the mushroom cloud from the atomic bomb.
That's right.
They scrapped that idea because it sounded silly, but then again, they recycled the concept for that gimmick with Matango, where everyone turns into mushrooms. Even though I know it's actually based on an old Joseph Conrad short story, which is actually a very good story. The idea of people actually turning into mushrooms, come on, let's face it. You can connect the dots between the two concepts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Okay,
more
Jedi, your Woody can go down now, man.
Okay. I mean, I did get excited, so yes. I mean, just
Yeah, he was like,
Okay, sorry, Kevin.
It could actually, if you think, I know Anubis has mentioned it, but when it came to a Godzilla -1 sequel, the fact that there is talks of bringing in Hedorah and all it, you could use Matego as an influence. Yeah, you could use that as an influence because obviously, as you know, that the people turn into like these mushroom people. And if you think about it, the DNA that's been released from Godzilla, that's affecting people. Like the last scene in -1 where you see the vein going black. How do you not know it's not affecting people where they're going to mutate?
Because the whole concept of Matango is, what the Thrash was saying, it's changing, but it does involve, radiation of some sort. So, you have to take that concept. And I think that would work if they were to implant that into a future film. I mean, I would love to see how they would do that, because Matango is one of those very underrated films that true enough, like I say, me and Thrash are fans of it, but I feel more people need to just kind of look it over because there's more to it than just the concept of you turning into a mushroom. It's just the duality of the deterioration of humankind when you watch this film, But I mean, like I say, it's I'm getting off topic though. But I'm just saying if they were to do something like that,
we have to talk about Matango at some point. We have to do Matango now.
Definitely.
Thank you.
What about you, Sci-Fi? What's your opinion of the difference between the original and the remake or the reclash?
Well, it's like everyone has said. Like, if we didn't get the first King Kong versus Godzilla, the MonsterVerse probably would have never have come to fruition. It would have been created. And Josh Pondo made a good point. What if Godzilla had never been created, and who would Kong fight? And yeah, it's always gonna have a legacy, man. Even when people and when it first came out, when it was released back in the '60s, that they tore it up, they murdered it on reviews and everything. Like now, it's like it's still always gonna be. Other countries are gonna like movies more than a lot in the U.S. So, Godzilla, and like you guys had mentioned, King Kong versus Godzilla is still the most attended film in Japan. So it's like it has its charms, and of course Godzilla, the MonsterVerse, Godzilla X Kong, or Godzilla versus Kong. I gotta agree with Anubis that Kong stood no chance without a great equalizer in the axe, but they made it. They kept it somewhat close to the source material, which was King Kong versus Godzilla. Close, loosely. I did like, but you know what? Anybody hasn't mentioned Kong's brown fur in the first King Kong vs. Godzilla, and King Kong's brown fur when he first started in Kong Skull Island, and then how it was a little bit more was still a little bit more brown in King Kong Godzilla vs. King Kong, and then now turning a darker skin. But that's it. There's always going to be there's always going to be a legacy with that, and I agree. If it wasn't for King Kong vs. Godzilla, the MonsterVerse would have never came to pass.
Yeah, I remember way back when you got to see the post-credit scene in Kong Skull Island. And I remember there's a post-credit scene because obviously they wanted to capture on the success of Marvel, because every studio since Marvel, if they're trying to build a universe, a lot of their films have a post-credit scene.
Yep.
And I always remember watching the end of Kong Skull Island, and the next thing you seen, it took you back, and they were in like the Monarch base. They were being interrogated, and they showed you the old cave paintings. They showed you Rodan, they showed you King Ghidorah, they showed you Mothra, and then the final one was a picture of Kong and Godzilla clashing. The screen goes black, and then there's Godzilla's roar.
Yes.
And I always remember the hype around that. And I was like, this is going to be as big as the MCU. That's what I initially thought.
I would say this: if I wasn't hard on before, that definitely gave me a hard on when I saw that in the theater. So that moment,
and the next big hype was the trailer for King of the Monsters.
Yep.
Yeah.
I have to say though, the trailer and the promotion work was much better than the actual end of film, because, and I say that only for one reason: this had too many spoilers. Too many like TV spots, too many trailers, too much information just hide out there that when you got your arse in the seat, there was no surprises.
I think we need much tighter control on spoilers.
And the problem is, well, the social media, it's very hard now, and it's like also because of the hype and because of the success of the San Diego Comic-Con trailer. It was the most viewed trailer that week, King of the Monsters, and the hype was real. So because the hype was real, they started pre-production straight away on Godzilla vs. Kong.
Well, I think it could have been done if they because it's good you promote something, but it's like I've been told before, you don't give the whole buffet, don't give the whole dinner without giving a little like an entree, just give a little taste of it. And then Marvel did it 10 times, and they was able to get movies out there without having to promote a whole bunch of secrets being in the trailer or with advertising. It's like it could have been done, but somebody oversaturated that with that. I think that's what was the problem.
Tony, wrong stream.
Right? Wow. Okay.
My camera's on.
I didn't catch that at first until I was like, "Is he doing?" I think. Okay. Yeah.
We used to talk about hard-ons, and I just got excited.
Okay. Well, that's good. You're supposed to get excited.
So I always remember, because of the hype of the King of the Monsters trailer, the film didn't do as well at the box office, but because they were already in production, they had no choice but to release Godzilla vs. Kong.
Yeah.
But luckily, there was a thing called the pandemic that got in the way. And so it was what I think also hyped is because it was 2 years of no movies, no going outdoors. It was the first major film released on both streaming in cinemas, theaters simultaneously. It did big.
Well, that movie, which is so funny because the original was so important to both franchises that when 2021 came out, that basically saved the MonsterVerse, because after the failure of King of the Monsters, I thought they were going to be done. So when Godzilla and Kong came out, that saved it. They made a lot of money. They did very well.
It wasn't a failure. It was not a failure, Anubis.
It's not what?
Godzilla King of the Monsters was not a failure.
Well, no. But, just in terms of money, like it didn't really make the kind of money that 2014 made, or even Godzilla and Kong, which is unfortunate. It's a really great movie, but
I think the theatrical box office recouped the money from the
Mm.
production, but it was all the streaming and the DVDs and merchandise sales is where they actually made a profit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
The Godzilla.
but the one thing I will
Totally.
say, because of the success of that movie, I think they saw potential like, right, Kong and Godzilla need to be a team, and we need to keep it together because that's what's drawing the crowd. And we're heading in 2027 to our third outing with Godzilla and Kong. Who knows what it's going to be? I do not know. Mr. Daniel Miller, what's your opinion of the original and the new version?
I think the original set the precedent for a lot, the MonsterVerse included. I think that the MonsterVerse, they got the actual concept of the fight, like who's the stronger one of the two. They got that correct. King Kong versus Godzilla, the original. Of course, it wasn't a serious movie from the get-go. It was a comedy twist on the idea, while also being a satire on how Japanese television thinks the audience is unintelligent and as such belittles them. The American cut of that movie tried to be a pseudo-realistic monster movie by changing the narrative perspective through telling it as a series of news bulletins with news anchors, which I thought was an interesting one. The MonsterVerse plays it as a straightforward monster battle. What you see is what you get, and it's absolutely worth the price of admission if you went to see it in the cinema post-lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in terms of the now this is going back to the original. In terms of the difference between the American and the Japanese cuts, they're more or less the same plot line. It's just very different in terms of the actual presentations of it. The American cut, it's shorter. It uses stock footage from the Mysterians in a few scenes, and most of Akira Ifukube's music is absent. The Japanese cut, of course, it's longer and it has all of Ifukube's music in there. But it also paints a more, I guess you would say, a more adventure, tongue-in-cheek kind of movie, especially with the King Kong angle. The MonsterVerse, Godzilla vs. Kong, it takes its own continuity and builds upon it in a way that not only broadens the lore of that, but it also harkens back to the very idea of two of cinema's most recognizable characters, these larger-than-life, pun intended, characters, having a rematch since the early 60s, but just a unique twist which would have worked if it weren't for the bloody spoilers. Social media, for God's sake. Yeah, I say to each their own. I don't usually try to favorite one movie over the other if it's a remake or a reinterpretation. I try to appreciate them as their own things, which I think
Definitely.
a lot of people, especially after Godzilla vs. Kong's release, there was quite a lot of that going around saying, well, which is the better movie? Of course, one has better special effects, but one has better storytelling. So I think it really boils down to they're both a product of each time, really. The 60s, it was sort of an anything goes, whether it be zany or action adventure. Whereas the MonsterVerse, it tries to be more serious, but it also incorporates its own sense of humor into the movie, whether it be through the monster fighting or through the human characters. But definitely, the original has definitely been influential and concrete to filmmakers and to filmmaking. Not just in terms of its history, but in terms of what it's inspired. Like the Kraken from Pirates of the Caribbean, I read in an article somewhere that the effects for that were inspired by the octopus scene from the original King Kong versus Godzilla. Because
That makes sense.
told the effects to look at that scene and incorporate that into the Kraken. Hold on a second. Hold on. Let me just Get my words together.
You'll get it.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Here we are. The Yes, there was a little bit of interesting trivia about that, and Walter, you may, most of you in Walter may know about this. The Japanese cut, it's been unavailable for a very long time outside Japan, but it wasn't until the Criterion managed to negotiate. Yep, release the Kraken. Release the Kraken.
There you go.
Yep, Criterion managed to negotiate with Toho that they could have the Japanese cut as a special feature in the box set. Now that, if you look at those two versions side by side, you notice that the Japanese cut, although it is remastered by today's standards, there's a catch, because the original Japanese version was shown at film festivals toward the end of the 60s to help Toho generate more money to keep producing more films, because there was a recession going into the 70s. But during these festivals, the films, King Kong vs. Godzilla included, were all cut down to fit within the runtime. Now, all the movies that were cuts, they were restored later on, but King Kong vs. Godzilla fared the worst, as they had to replace the missing scenes with footage of varying quality. Some of it from work prints that were duplicates from the original negatives, others that were from sources that were of lesser material. But during a clear out of the Toho vault, this was as the Criterion were negotiating the King Kong vs. Godzilla release for their box set, Toho found an intact 35mm duplicate of the original Japanese negative. And
How lucky is that?
That was there was a post on Toho's social media. I think it was either the Twitter or the Instagram. It was one of the two, but then it made headlines on YouTube. So they remastered it, and it was the first Godzilla movie to be given the 4K treatment in Japan only. But yeah, an interesting piece of trivia. But if you, I think.
But how lucky is that? How lucky is that? That they came across just a random, they were just looking through the vault of Toho and happened to just come across a duplicate of the original.
It's very lucky.
Yeah, it's very lucky. Besides, keep in mind, analog technology, it was common practice to make duplicates of complete films for showing in foreign territories. The copy that they found was meant to be shown in different territories in Asia, but was misplaced, and as such was never shipped out. So that was a blessing in disguise. Definitely. Many years later on, and it's kind of miffed, considering this movie's status on both sides of the Atlantic. Why Universal hasn't bothered to do a proper remaster of this? Because if you look at the two side by side, you can tell that there's a lot of fading and degrading and even scratches on certain frames of the movie. And this is a Blu-ray, and it's the same Blu-ray.
What they may do is though, just like when the 2005 Kong came out, they released a box set. They may do something for the 30th anniversary the 100th anniversary of King Kong.
Yeah, hopefully.
They may do a box set with different versions of the Kong movies inside.
Yeah.
Mr. Tony the Dead, what's your opinion of the original and the remake, or the second encounter?
I mean, you can't really compare them. I mean, it's not kind of like night and day, except this one kind of had this, like Daniel said the whole time, I'm thinking like when King Kong's swimming away, like, well, let's have Godzilla's head hanging there and let him wink, like Freddy versus Jason. But yeah, I didn't take it that King Kong won in this one. I just took it as like they just kind of both went their ways. But in the newer one, they both fought another creature that came, right?
Mechagodzilla.
Yeah.
Mecha. Okay, that was that one.
Mecha's cool.
Okay, see, I like that concept where they both have to put away their differences
Hmm.
to fight like a big monster and like
Mhm.
be
Defend
adults
the
about
Earth.
it. Yeah, yeah, defend the Earth. So I like
Yeah.
that concept more than the ending to this, to the original one. But
Mhm.
I do like the suits at the same time. I feel like the CGI made it more of a, I want to say realistic, but like if there's big monsters, that's probably what you'll see, and it like has that your perspective in a way. Um, it was comical at times, like with the way that guy. What do you say he was a Charlie Chaplin?
Oh, the
Of
Japanese Charlie Chaplin, that gentleman's actor. I'm going to butcher it. I'm very sorry.
Mhm.
Ishiro Arishitoma?
Ishiro.
Arishitoma.
Taco.
Yeah,
Arishirama.
Ichirō Arishima.
Arishima. There's no T in there. I don't know where I got the T. Probably T for two. But anyway, but yes, he was considered a great physical comedy actor in Japan.
he did seem very out of place in the movie, but like get I don't know. It's kind of like in was it in the Great Behemoth, the Giant Behemoth, where the Great Behemoth, where that guy came in and he was like the comic kind of funny guy, and then he gets killed in the plane
In
or
the
in the
next scene, in the helicopter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like that's like this guy kind of felt like in a way to me.
He's sort of like the rival professor in the Lost World.
I never
Yes.
saw the Lost World.
You know, I don't
That's on
go
my
with you, I
list.
suppose. You know, and he's very like animated and out of place, effete. And
Yeah.
you think he's gonna be this big character, and then just kill him off in the next scene.
Yeah, I was like, I like that guy. It's like the one guy I liked in it, you know.
Yeah.
But
he was great as like an interesting caricature of
Yeah.
sorts.
Of a yes,
Yeah.
very good, very well spotted.
yes,
Yes.
I think the whole part with the juice, the soma, is
The
kind of
Yeah.
like a really kind of a weird way to introduce him into this, but yet I do like that they had the raft, which is another thing. It's like the raft didn't look much bigger than the boat, and he's supposed to be huge. So it's like I know like he's smaller than Godzilla at times. I don't know. It's just that's one thing they never get right is the comparisons to things. Like he's supposed to be huge, but yet, I don't know. You just got to go with it, I guess.
Scale.
Toho Studios, a sense of scale was never something they were
No.
very interested in.
They're bigger
Sometimes-
than us. That's all that should matter to you. That's what
Yep.
they kind of look at, I think.
When you watch Johnny Sucko Giant Robot, you see that all the time. Sometimes the alien is almost as big as the giant robot. Sometimes it's not much bigger than a person. Sometimes the scale is all over the place
Yeah.
because they were more concerned with being entertaining than accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do I the part with him crashing out of the ice, that was a great shot. As I did
Yeah.
really enjoy that. I mean, they both have good and bad things about them. This is a little campy, but look at the times. What you're working with. I think they did fine. Yeah, I mean, there's like I said, good and bad about both, and I enjoyed both of them. But yeah, like I said, the one thing that I did like more about the newer one is that they both fought Mecha Godzilla in it, and
Yeah.
I liked that storyline.
Yeah.
The whole thing back and forth where they're like telling each other was kind of a weird way to do it. Like, is that what Dan you're talking about? Like how we're like stupid, so they have to do it like, oh, Godzilla's coming into the bay now.
Oh yeah.
We can't really film that, but that's what's going on.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't just exposition; they were also trying to make it more cosmopolitan. That's why they added that scene with the American submarine at the beginning. They wanted it to have like I hate to use the word inclusive. they wanted a more international feel to it. They wanted to have an international feel.
Oh, okay.
And so they added a bunch of Americans. So here we got a few guys from the UN. Here we got a few guys from the U.S. Navy. And so these UN guys are going to kind of be telling you what's happening while it's happening. They're completely superfluous. But
Avoiding the situation is
I
grim.
mean, I have to admit, I always found that bit just bizarre. It's like,
Yeah.
why the fuck are you
Superfluous.
telling me what is happening? I want to see Kong walk from the sea onto the beach and pick up a building and toss it at Godzilla. And they're sitting there with these papers going, so Godzilla has arrived to Tokyo Bay and he's about to fuck things up. Well, don't tell us,
Queen-
show me him
There goes
fucking
Dan.
things up.
Queen just brought up an excellent point. They're supposed to be experts, and they're going to talk to us about
Yeah, Dr.
paleontology,
Arnold
and they
Johnson.
pull out a kid's book.
Yes.
You see,
Mhm.
Yeah.
this is a Stegosaurus. This is a T-Rex. I'm like, I think I actually had that book when I first saw the movie when I was 6 years old. Because I've always been a dinosaur buff.
So what is that, Thrash? Is that Leonardo DiCaprio meme where you're like pointing like, I know that book?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fossils found in Japan.
So,
resemble
Mr.
Godzilla.
Yeah.
Dr. Carter.
Mr. Jedi Granville, what's your opinion of the original and the 2021?
Well, y'all pretty much have covered all the bases. I mean, one thing I can say, like I say, it's kind of like the original Star. I'll still say Star Wars. I'm not going to say New Hope because it was Star Wars when I saw it. Star Wars will have a special place in my heart, just like this film has a special place in my heart. But like you say, when you compare like apples and oranges, like I say, the MonsterVerse film has a more texture to it because it seems or looks more, as Tony was saying, more realistic because let's face it, you have new technologies and each one has their different ways of doing what they're doing. You know, I mean, you have a man in the suit, whereas here it's more motion capture suits capturing the action and everything. And even though each one has their pluses, or I should say their pros and the cons, they still have their special way of entertaining the audience. I mean, like I say, when I saw King Kong versus Godzilla at a tender age of 10, it was just like, wow, you know, this is just amazing, you know, and it still holds that. But when you see something like MonsterVerse, Godzilla versus Kong at your 50 age range, you realize, oh man, this is badass. They actually went ahead and did this, you know. It's like, this is where you have to realize that it's almost like what you call them, mini bites, you know, that cereal is like frosted for the kid in you, but the wheat is for the adult in you. So it's like that kind of play on that, you know. So it's always knowing that one is meant for you at a certain point in your life, where the other one is meant for you later in life. So I feel like that needs to be something that always will be, for me, tangible in knowing that you get that at different points in your world, you know. So
Yeah.
Well
For me
said.
personally,
Very well said.
yeah, definitely. As always, Walter always brings the honesty and he brings his all to these. So for me personally, I always have enjoyed the original, but it's not my favourite of the original Toho movies. I like the fact that we got Kong within the Toho, Showa era. I wish they could have done more with them, but I feel as if what we got with them was enough. Obviously, what they've been able to do with them with the MonsterVerse is just they've basically brought a new popularity to King Kong, and I like what they've done with Godzilla, but I would like Godzilla to have more depth going forward. I think he deserves some more light shined on him because, as I've always, I feel as if, and I think majority of fans feel like this, Kong is the star and Godzilla is the co-star. But it didn't start out that way. I feel as if because they look at Kong as a giant ape, that he has humans are not genuine, not casual, diehard kaiju fans love Godzilla, adore Godzilla, but they're worried, I think, to take the risk with Godzilla because they think a general audience can only connect to Kong. And I think that's what they're frightened to take a leap of faith with. But as we're seeing with Godzilla 2014, it can be done. Because the backstory that they give Godzilla right at the beginning instantly got me interested. He's a giant aquatic alpha predator that's ancient, he's an ancient creature, thousands of years old, that surfaces the surface land to ward off threats that's going to attack any minute. And I instantly was like, what an amazing idea. And the fact that they didn't really go beyond that from the first movie, they kind of filled in gaps in Monarch, the Legacy Monster series. I'm hoping that with the next movie, we'll get more emphasis on Godzilla and we'll learn more of his actual history other than just a monster that arrives on the scene and kicks anything's arse that's threatening the world around him. But they have definitely upped the ante with Kong and made him, I guess, more like a superhero in many ways. To kind of compete with the MCU and like the way cinema is right now. But I personally think the original is still a classic, and I think it's had a lifelong universal influence on cinema and history because I think it gave other studios ideas that you can do cross productions with different properties. And obviously, whether people want to admit it or not, the Showa era, what Toho did interacting these different monsters was the first ever on screen, for me personally, shared cinematic universe. Yes. So, they've never ever said that out loud. They've never ever bring it up in conversations, but that's definitely the way. That's definitely the truth in my eyes.
Well, when you're a purist, that's the kind of thing. I mean, you can easily say that because it's like you have an open mind to let that say it could be that those two things could exist. But what's up, Jake? All right, Jake. The simple fact is, some people who are say these things shouldn't blossom together, they shouldn't coexist. It's like free your mind, your ass will follow. I mean, you never know what could work. It could. So.
Yeah, I know that better than anyone, Walter.
Okay.
Free your mind and the rest of my love.
Oh, there you go. Be colorblind. Don't be so shallow.
And then the show.
I think. Well, I'm heading in that direction because my final question and thought is going to be your final thoughts and your ratings for the original Godzilla versus King Kong 1962. We'll start with DJ Anubis.
So, when it comes to kaijus, like Kong has never really been one of my favorites, but
no,
I don't mind him, obviously. But when it comes to this film, again, I can't dismiss it because it was very important to the whole Kong and Godzilla universe. So, but it doesn't really live up to the MonsterVerse, and I don't care if people hate me for saying that. I mean, I love all my nostalgia and all my, Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 72, etc. But this film never resonated with me a lot. I knew the importance of it, but I think they got it right in Godzilla and Kong. So, but as far as the original, I mean, I still give it a 7 out of 10. It's still very enjoyable for what it is, but it misses on a lot of different things that I think are not really meant to be for the particular creatures. Like Kong, I just can't get over that whole fucking electricity shit. It just bothers the shit out of me. Bothers the shit out of me.
Kong.
They had to think of something. How can we make him fight back? That part was funny though, where he did the Undertaker on him.
Yeah.
Popped up and grabbed the tail.
Yeah.
Dong.
Dong.
Thrash.
Well, forgive me, guys. As a kaiju buff, it's very difficult for me to give any giant monster movie a 10 because they weren't made to be 10 movies. They were meant to be entertaining. This isn't Dr. Zhivago we're talking here. That being
Speak for
said,
yourself, big man.
Ooh, snap.
This ain't no Gone with the Wind.
Oh God,
Oh, it's on now.
Casablanca
what
here.
are you talking about now?
It's on now.
But they're
It's no
thoroughly-
Varan.
They're
Oh.
fun.
Oh,
They're entertaining.
We're going there.
They're fun. They're entertaining. I have a blast every time I watch one. If I'm in a bad mood, I pop this movie in, and I love it. So while I can't, in good conscience, give it a 10, I'm going to give it a 9.
Oh, that's
English ain't in
high.
this movie. in English.
Yes.
Wow, very surprising. but
It's
good.
like mic
Yes.
drop.
Sci-fi.
Here's my impression of Rodan.
Oh,
Oh, boy.
I think he's cool, but man, did he bitch out in that movie? I'm sorry.
They did bitch about
hey, he was directed. He was directed to do that. Okay, he wasn't his. It was a
he ain't
direction. It was a
stupid,
director's
right?
call.
It's like
No, hell no.
whoever has the more favorite.
I mean,
win, I'm
dude, he
gonna be
got
on their
punked
side.
by Mothra. I mean, of all creatures, he got punked by him.
Yeah.
He was winning before Mothra came out. with
Yeah,
the
if she was
super
half a
weapon.
woman when she stuck him in the ass. Said, "Sit down, Birdie."
Now, if you were half the size of King Ghidorah, you all be doing the same shit.
Oh, I'm not. I said he's not stupid. I want to live. I'll just bitch down.
That's
bow
why.
down
That's
to you.
see. That's why Tony. That's why, hey man, you're getting points, bro, because he's a survivor.
I
He's
do
a
want to say
survivor,
something to
so-
this comment though, real quick. She's right, but -1 probably should have won an Oscar for best movie. That movie is awesome, top to bottom.
Best
Well,
international movie, at least.
It should have
Yes.
been nominated for best international movie and won.
Yes.
As I said before, don't tell that to too many purists because I've made that argument and someone rammed it down my damn throat. I was like, well, okay, that's your opinion. Fuck you, okay.
Fuck the Pierce. Fuck the Pierce.
Well, I just
Walter, my good friend, Mr. Jedi Granville, it's as simple as this. Opinions are like arseholes. Everyone has one.
Yes.
And most of them
Yep.
stink.
Yep.
Yep,
A good
all of
point.
them stink.
Right? All of them.
Right.
No, but no. I mean, it's like you guys said, like Kevin is gonna, pretty much say Anubis or Pondo. It was a part of my childhood. I really liked it, especially when it came out. We're all like, "Oh wow, Godzilla vs Kong!" And yeah, it hasn't aged very well, but it's still gonna be a classic in my mind. That it inspired the new MonsterVerse and everything like that. So I mean, it's always going to be up there, man. It's not one of my favorites. It's not like, oh my God, whatever, but it's still I don't hate none of the Godzilla movies. I don't hate none of them. I mean, I have my list of favorites and I have my list of least favorite, but it's it's always going to be a classic to me. So I give it about I'll give it an 8. I give it an 8
Mm.
ranking. So, because of my
Daniel
childhood. Because
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
For
and
all our childhoods.
Alejandro, Gamera versus Baragon. Different Baragon, but Gamera versus Baragon is probably the best Gamera movie.
yes. That is the best one.
Yep. Now, how would I rate this movie? I wouldn't give it a high rating, but I wouldn't give it a low rating. So I'll probably be around the middle, say around a 6.5 to a 7 out of 10. It is of its time. It has its charm. It's great to see as a 60s monster romp or just something to pass the time, or if you really want to get some friends around and see one of the biggest monster mashes since that of Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, and of course in a widescreen presentation and in color. As a serious kaiju movie, it's not without its flaws. I mean, of course, some of the characters could have been more fleshed out, but I did enjoy Mr. Taco, definitely, in both the American and Japanese versions. Compared to the newer movies, of course, it won't hold. Of course, it's not as strong as those movies, but it's not any less of an entertaining film as the MonsterVerse films. It's important, as we've said, because not only did it spark the foundations for the MonsterVerse, it actually prompted the people in charge of the MonsterVerse to say, look, we've got a Godzilla movie, we've got a Kong movie. Now we've introduced both characters again. Let's put them together in a movie and make them rematch. And that was the right decision there, as well as
good.
into a team, into a tag team at the end.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of the original movie, not the greatest, but not the worst of the bunch either, and it's important for a number of things, especially in the home media department. It has a very interesting history from being a truncated festival presentation to being restored to being the first of the Toho catalog of kaiju movies to get a 4K transfer before the original Godzilla as well. So that's something to take into account.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, my final rating, 6.5 out of 10.
I think that's
hasn't
fair.
aged well, but it's
What
it's a
has?
fun film to watch.
Yeah.
Oh,
Miss-
guys, I hate to interrupt. I just looked at the time. I get a bail. Wicked sorry to
okay.
like ditch on you, but guys, I have had so much fun tonight, and I'll see you all Saturday for Green Slime.
Yes.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Looking forward to it.
Have a good
Night,
night,
guys.
Thrash.
Yep.
Thanks.
See you
Take care,
guys.
guys.
Good night, Thrash.
Peace.
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 So where we're going to Mr. Tony next.
Yeah, everybody made some, real good points and stuff. Wow, that came out really bad. It came out very American to me. Everybody made a lot of good points, and yeah, I mean, far as like entertainment value, I think like I enjoy the remake more, or they should say the newer one more. But you got to go with what they had back then, and the fact that there's guys in suits and going through all that, and then it's another thing. But which one would I put on? Probably the newer one. I like that
Yeah.
storyline better. But I still appreciate this. It's the first time watching it. I would like to show my kids. I think they would enjoy it. It seems like more geared toward younger generations. But I would definitely say I was thinking what Dan said, probably about 6.5. I enjoyed it. It was entertaining. Like Thrash said, like it's not a 10 or anything, but I didn't waste my time, so I'm fine with it. Shayna G,
Hello.
I know her.
Cool.
Shayna G.
Yeah.
Shauna. That's Shauna.
She's
wild.
Yes.
Shauna.
That's Shanna.
I think finally we're down to Mr. Jedi Granville.
Always
Okay.
fucking laughs.
All right. Yeah, well, of course. I always bring in the rear because I'm sexual chocolate all the
There
time.
you go.
Yes.
Put that on a shirt.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. Alejandro, we're going to be doing that one tomorrow. We're doing a review on that tomorrow, actually.
yes.
It's going to be live again the same time as this one.
Yeah.
But to close it all up, not the butthole. To close it all up, it's this film is, like I say again, it's a childhood favorite, and I think thankfully, like Godzilla, like Kong, I discovered them early in my youth. Maybe if I had discovered them in my teenage years, it would have been a different feel. But fortunately, I grasped these things back when, like I say, I didn't know a damn thing about anything around my surroundings. All I know is I was getting bullied and picked on and whatever. But thankfully, kaijus, Star Trek, Star Wars kept me in line to say, hey, you want to fuck with me? I'm gonna let you know. But it just let me know that I can run to these things and have my imagination just pumped. And King Kong versus Godzilla was no different. It really sold to me like, hey, you can, if you can think it, you can make it. And I think that just goes with life anyway. You know, you're going to make something like this and it stands the test of time, even after 60 years. You know, who knows what else might come out that will stand the test of time. Because, like I say, the newer reiteration of Godzilla versus Kong, it shows right there people still have a taste for these things. You know, it's not going away. It's like a taste in their mouth that just never goes away. And I feel like that's the thing about this movie. It's still going to stand the test of time, even 60 years later. You know, I mean, when it hits 100, it's like, wow, people still watching it, still talking about it. It's going to be the same with Godzilla when he hits 100. They'll still be talking about it. You know,
100%.
But to give the rating for this, it's kind of like Thrash. I'm not going to give it a 10 because even though it's not my favorite, but I still enjoy it. I will give it personally a 8 out of 10. So.
Excellent. As for me, it's easy for me, this one. You know, I respect the movie for it did, because it really put a lot of eyes on, like, if you think about it, back in the 1933, King Kong had a huge impact on cinema. Then in 1954, Godzilla did. 2 epic movies, and who would have thought many years later that you would have them both on the screen at the same time? So it created a lot of buzz. I generally believe it helped, you know, keep Godzilla again around for a long time. I think it created a lot of buzz, and like I say, opportunities for cross promotion with different, you know, properties. I think it opened the eyes to cinema of what could be. And many years later, we're talking about MCUs, we're talking about DCUs, we're talking about so many universes, and everything has to have an origin, or everything has to have that initial spark of, you know, originality, or something that brought to the forefront. And I've always said that the Toho Showa era was the beginning of a multiverse, beginning of, you know, a shared universe. And I generally think the impact that Godzilla versus King Kong did, it created buzz that hadn't been seen in a long time. The next time I felt like a thing had a buzz like that was probably Star Wars, and after that was probably Jurassic Park. And, you know, it's like every couple of generations, that one film or that one set of movies that breaks the mold and creates that kind of buzz and impact, and that's what this did. So because of that reason, I'm going to be fair and give it a 7 out of 10. But this has been our review of, and our discussion more or less, of Godzilla versus King Kong 1962. Now, I'll go around my panel and ask if these lovely gentlemen have anything going on their channel in the next few days or in the future to look forward to. So, Mr. DJ Anubis.
Yeah, so tomorrow, obviously, I'll be joining you all again, most of you, on for the King Kong Escapes, which I think some people will be actually surprised by my thoughts on that film. This is actually the first time I've seen that film, so that'll be interesting. Saturday, unfortunately, I can't make the Green Slime. Got an engagement during the day, but later in the evening, Olvin and I, who have just started a new podcast called the Silver Screen Savants. We did our first episode last week for Live and Let Die. Tomorrow, I believe, or not tomorrow, but Saturday, I believe, Jedi and Anthony Jordan will be joining us for The Man with the Golden Gun.
Yeah.
And let's see, next week, I'll actually be catching up with Mr. Lambert here to do my second batch of Kaiju Spotlight series. We are going to be doing Gorgo. And then on the 20th, which is Thursday, I'll be joining Sentry for Ninja Scroll.
Yep.
Yes, that'll be a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mr. Tony of the Dead.
Just recording Ghouls Are we doing that?
Oh yeah,
tonight?
that's tonight. Sorry about that.
I didn't know if we were definitely doing it or not. So
Yeah, we are.
We're doing that where we're gonna be talking about the Weatherman with Nicolas Cage. And then, of course, tomorrow I will be on here again where we talk about King Kong Escapes, where it will also be my first time watching it. And I'm looking forward to that. I didn't know there was a King Kong, so that's kind of neat. He's cute.
Mechanicong.
Mechanicong. I like that. Well, don't say it. It sounds too like
It's like a large version of the Tin Man from Wizard of Oz.
Kind of like that,
there
yeah.
you go. And then the Green Slime on Saturday, and Ninja Scroll next week, and then of course Ghouls next week. Whatever Anubis picks, we'll be talking about that. And then on my birthday on the 26th on this channel, we're going to be talking all the most of the dead movies. And I don't know. I've just been enjoying our off-screen discussions and watching movies and hanging out and stuff. It's been fun. It's like Anthony said, like this is the only socialization I get, so it's been nice and a good distraction from real life and actually having something good. And can I also say one thing? I don't think you have to worry about Godzilla being not the focus of anything, because look at the background of everybody here except for me, of course. But like, I don't think Godzilla's going anywhere. You don't have to worry. I mean, Dan has fucking like 50 of them above his head.
Yep.
I just started.
There in Century, you can see the chicken right at the top there.
Yep.
The chicken.
Yep.
Well,
Hollywood.
well,
So true, Indy. So true.
But yeah,
my God.
it's been fun. So that's all that's going on, really.
Jedi Grand Vale. Is there anything coming your way?
Well, like I say, since we already know about the new laptop, I'm going to be working on trying to develop something new coming up my channel, but that'll probably be in a month or two's time. But as far as everything else, I will be joining with you gentlemen, wonderful gentlemen, again tomorrow for King Kong Escapes, and of course I will be joining on Anubis's, and Euban's, yes, for the Man in the Golden Gun. And I'm trying to remember when were we doing was it going to be taping of the Green Slime?
Yeah, it's just gonna be this one's just gonna be recording.
Okay, well then I'll be joining that too, which I'm gonna definitely want to bang out that one for sure. And of course I will be on Sci-Fi's next week's Ninja Scrolls, baby. And I'm like, hopefully we tear that thing up like Homeboy tore. We won't get into that. But anyway, but yeah, I'm gonna be on that, and like I say, it's gonna be a fun time, like we've been doing all the time, just having fun.
Mr. Sci-Fi Century.
Well, first I want to thank you, Kevin, for always adding me and then everyone here on your podcast and your live streams. But yeah.
You don't need an invite.
looking-
You can just pop in. You don't need an invite. You know your family. Just pop
You
on
can just
in.
walk in naked. We don't care.
Exactly. I mean, I'll get naked right now if you want me to. I mean, I'll do that,
Hold on, slow your roll, baby boy. Slow your roll. Slow your roll.
Okay. I mean, it's like I say, hey, we're all family, so I mean,
Save the anaconda for your lady, bro.
Okay.
No anaconda don't want. No, your anaconda don't want none unless you got buns, hun. We already know that, bro.
Gotcha.
So, okay, but yeah. So, I'll be joining you guys again tomorrow also for King Kong Escapes. That way, I can talk about me and Kevin also, and everyone who went to G-Fest 2023. We could talk about how much of a wonderful human being Linda Miller is, and the film it being fun. And then so far, besides that, I don't know if I've had anything aside from Ninja Scroll, which will be on the 20th with the debut of the man of a million movies, Mr. Tony of the Dead. And then we have Anubis and we call it Jedi Granville. Kevin, I would have you on, man, if you could watch it or get it, man. But I don't know if you're gonna be working. Dan, filming. If you're not doing anything, man, try to catch it. If you want to see if you can catch it. I am gonna do on the Sci-Fi Society group. I think because Gojira wants to watch it, and Anthony said he wants to watch it. We're gonna do like a little watch along from my TV on my side, so we can watch it because they both don't have it. And,
are you gonna project it from your TV?
No, not projected. Just like when I put my tablet on, I'm gonna have it aim it towards my TV while we're all watching it.
Well, I mean, okay.
Yeah, because it's not on. I don't know if it's on. I don't even think it's on any of the streaming services, man.
No, I was just wondering because if you want, if I can do it, I have the DVD. I can like rip it to my computer and then we can play it through StreamYard again if you want, so that they don't have to watch it to your TV. If you want to try to do that, just let me know what day you guys want to do that. All right. Well, yeah. Let me know what day you want to do that.
Yeah. That'd be better. Like I said, that would be better. I mean, if I knew I can do that, why would you screen? Would it be like screen mirroring or something, or what?
Well, kind of like what I've been doing lately, but I have like a portable Blu-ray player, so I can just pop it in there. Rip it on my computer, and then it'd be just like a video file. So,
yeah. I'll let you know. It's not till the 20th, but I don't know if Walter watched it. Did you watch it already, Walter?
I still haven't received the damn Blu-ray. I'm like, what the fuck are they doing? I mean, it's like a delay, man. I don't know what's going on, man. But if it has to come down to that,
sorry about that. Well,
no, that's okay.
Yeah, well, okay, no, yeah, but you'll get it. You're just gonna be a while, but I'll say what do you call it? But yeah, Ninja Scroll, and then Ninja Scroll, then Event Horizon probably later this. I'll try to do later this month if I can, and then as I will say with Kevin, we're gonna run Godzilla versus Gigan in March when he has the time, and also
that's one of my favorite Showa era films. Is that one?
And I have to have on that one, and then hopefully, if you're gonna have a week, if he's on vacation or whatever, we can do either Godzilla versus the Sea Monster, or what was the other one? What was the other one I wanted to do? Shit, I can't think of it right now. But I'll get to everybody on top of that. But so far, just Ninja Scroll, and then in March we're gonna do Godzilla versus Gigan. So far, that's all I got going on.
Mr. Dan Miller, is there anything coming to your channel?
Nothing coming as of this current moment, but I am working on my creative writing and also doing some more illustrations. So as soon as they're finished, they'll be narrated or posted either on my socials, or I might do a video collage of some of my illustrations from my scrapbook, or I might do another what's the bloody phrase? Time lapse. That's it. Time. Live and time. They both have I in the middle.
You could go back in time and do that. You never know.
I should damn well do that because I really am annoyed that time travel isn't a thing. Thanks for pointing that out, Walter.
Yes.
But no.
Or is it?
Yeah. Nothing definitive as of yet, but I'm saying never say never. So do keep an eye out on the channel, on my socials, because something will come, and when it does, I'll try and make it good. Not just for everyone out there, but for us, but for myself as well.
Yes.
Right. Godzilla versus what's that? Godzilla versus is also my favorite.
This is the first movie he saw.
Jake asked me if I was ever gonna do it to put him on, so I'll have him. So I'll put you on, man. I said I would, so I'll put you on. Just I'm only gonna have, I'm only gonna be able to have 6 people, but I'll let everybody know the roster.
Well, just to let all you guys know, because Thrash Pondu is not able to make it tomorrow night, I have invited Jake Hall to join us on the King Kong Escapes review.
Jake, yeah.
Jake is joining us tomorrow night. So
well, he better be prepared for his
fun we will have with him.
Better be ready.
And no
Jake.
cussing, young. No cussing, Mr. J. Cole. No cuss words.
It's like,
Yes.
watch your profanity.
Yes.
What's
So-
your
Yeah.
profanity?
As for the entertainment headquarters, like has been mentioned, tomorrow night at the same time of 2 p.m. Pacific time, 10 p.m. UK time, we all will be back to review.
Yeah.
We will all be back
Yeah.
to review King Kong Escapes.
Yes.
And then we go on to the Green Slime, which is a recording. I bet you will have no comments.
Right.
I live to watch Jake get a red face.
I would look. That's what I'm saying. I got to. When he's on here, it's like, dude, don't no. Just be prepared. You're gonna.
Oh,
have
you
it.
were the first guy I'm calling, Indy. You were the first one I'm calling.
Mhm.
We're corrupting the poor guy.
He's corruptible. That's all.
So, hello there, Gary. Unfortunately, we are nearly about time to wrap things up. But thank you
Can
for
return
joining.
tomorrow, though. Can return tomorrow.
Yes.
Yeah.
So tomorrow night at 2 p.m. Pacific time, we'll be back to review King Kong Escapes. Then we'll be recording, not live, but we'll be releasing on Saturday evening the Green Slime, and then on Sunday I have the pleasure of interviewing the lovely Linda Jo Miller. So we've set up the time. We've been talking over the last few weeks. So the star of King Kong Escapes, the female lead, Linda Jo Miller, Showa era legend, will be joining me on this channel, where we'll be doing an interview, and then it will be premiering on Monday night. But coming Sunday, I will be releasing my new unboxing video, which is a biggie. So
Just like
I have
mine.
that. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I should mention too. I do also have an unboxing to do at some point. Mr. Jedi there sent me something, so I'm going to be doing that at some point.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is. Could be a black mamba. I don't know.
Yeah, no.
Is it moving? Does it feel like it's alive?
Seems a little squishy.
That's what she said.
Mhm.
I am listening to everything you are saying, and I'm just thinking of it in a perverted way.
You should.
Can
One
you
day
feel
when
it?
we're not. One
It's
day when we're
squishy.
not live, I will tell you a story that everyone will appreciate.
Okay.
Right, we better wrap this up because I want to hear it.
Well, you're gonna especially like it, I'm sure.
So, but anyway, that is what's coming up for the rest of this week on the entertainment headquarters. Later this month, we'll go back to a regular things that we do. Yeah, we have an Into the Darkness birthday special for Mr. Tony of the Dead. Here, we'll be reviewing all of the Joe A. Romero Dead movies, his selections. Then me, DJ Anubis, and anybody who is welcome here. We're going to be doing for the Retro Classic Movie Show, I think on the 21st of February, Starship Troopers.
Mm-hmm.
So that is what's coming up on the entertainment headquarters. To all my guests, you all have been amazing as always. I love having you on. You make this worthwhile. I couldn't do this without you. So, my heart belongs to you guys. To everybody who's watching, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for making tonight. We'll hope to catch you tomorrow. And as always, as Mr. Jedi Grandrel says, keep the kaiju love alive.
Would you like to know more?
Yes.